Thank you everyone for joining this webinar. We've put together with Rich from Geeked.AI and Dave from Torc. There's been a lot of talk lately around AI and how to apply certain type of AI to the recruiting world. Us managing platforms, we've been working on technology, applying algorithms, applying AI to our processes for a long time. And of course, this is still a journey to take. We're improving and focusing on key areas of our work using technology to make better choices and more efficient choices, right? So joining us, I'm going to just present the panel. The session will be some questions to the panel. I'll be representing Outvise. I'm founder, CEO at Outvise. We are a business technology platform, many different types of roles to be found in our platform. And we have a relevant presence in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. Rich, founder and CEO of Gigged.Ai. Rich, if you would like to give a 5 cents on what you guys are doing at Gigged.Ai.
Yeah, sure. So Gigged.Ai is a talent platform. We've been applying. I was a recruiter for 12 years. I worked with a Legions Group for 12 years. So I come from the manual, old school world of qualifying a rec, finding a candidate, managing the process. I come from that world. So we've tried to automate as much of the process where human risk and error comes in, right? Not totally eradicate human interaction, but improve the areas. And our software gets used in 2 use cases, right? So it gets used by companies when they are trying to build deliverable-based milestones and then match talent to that to complete those milestones. So less matching them to a day rate, but to specific outcomes. Also, software is used by companies when they want to create their own internal marketplace. So they've got their employees all in one place, and they want to use our proprietary software to create their own white label marketplace. So we do 2 things, right? On-demand tech talent, as well as being a provider of software to large enterprises.
Thanks, Rich. And Dave, founder and CTO of Torc. Dave, go ahead and explain a little bit what you guys are up to.
Sure, thanks. So at Torc, we're basically a talent marketplace where we're trying to really manage the best careers for our talent and hook them up with the best opportunities for clients that can drive the best outcomes. In order to do that, we're using technology to help give recommendations, improvements to developers on how they can better further their career, better further their own skill set, and produce the best outcomes for our customers.
Great. And the talent you guys are working on, any specific talent?
Yeah, just we're really focused on software development, cloud native. So we're very focused really on 6 specific roles on cloud native technologies.
Brilliant, thanks. And us at Outvise, we focus on general business technology. We're not doing developers. And whenever our client needs a specific expert on demand, our platform is able to go through our network. We have thousands of those experts globally, match it and present it to the clients. And we have a system to generate the right pricing through a marketplace model where you can find the right people at the right price on demand. Okay, great. So it's all 3 of us now presented. I'm going now to the next slide, which is basically talking about the main topics we've chosen to speak about today. There are many topics around how to apply technology in recruiting, full-time recruiting, freelancer recruiting, like gig economy type, or other aspects of the HR management, right? So we've selected certain topics and we could discuss many other topics in the future, right? But just to narrow the scope, what we find relevant are the following ones at this stage, right? So companies are typically sifting through tons of CVs, trying to match what the business needs to what candidates are. And typically HR does this type of role. And there's a few challenges out there to match the right candidates with the right opportunities, assuming that the candidates are available, right? So we focused on how we are using technology in 4 main areas. First area is understanding what is needed, right? What is the scope of work? Or what is the JD that you need, right? What kind of tasks tasks and activities are required. The second one is, once we understand what we need, how our systems match and find the right candidates to match that need. So that's the second area of intelligence that we put into our platforms. The third layer would be, okay, so we have a lot of talent out there, and we need to be very efficient in how we onboard this talent to our platforms in the right quality way, and we understand what that talent is. So how can we automate those processes, and what are we doing to do that? And the last step would be, okay, so we have the need, we understand the need, we can match it, we've onboarded the talent, but now we need to manage a client, right? So how do we assist the process to interact with the clients in a project, for example, or in a hire? And how can we help the clients understand what might be the next need going forward? These are the 4 areas. There could be others, but we've chosen these 4. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing the presentation. These are the 4 areas, and we can start the discussion. Okay, so let's go to the first topic that we chose. Before we do that, excuse me, I would like to launch a question. I would like to know from our audience how many people in our audience have used tech-based talent platforms that use AI and algorithms to match efficiently. So we're going to launch the question now fast, and we'll share the results. Okay, the poll is out there. I'm not going to answer that one. Okay, as soon as we get the results, we'll publish it. Okay, so we have around just under 100 people in the webinar, which is quite a large audience, many more registered, but attending now concurrently about 100. 67 have not used platforms of this kind. So that's very interesting. I hope what we explained today is useful to you guys, and maybe you can reach out to any of us for further information. Nice. So 33 have used them. Great, but a long way to go. Okay, so let's start with the first one, right? So a key challenge is to understand what the business needs, right? It could be a project, a scope of work. It could be a JD, right? I'll speak last, representing Outvise. Rich, what's your point of view? What's your take in Gigged.Ai around scoping work?
Yeah, so this was where we started. I think interesting to go back to your poll. 64% not using a platform. I think that's the opportunity that we've got over the next few years, right? In terms of most people haven't, the majority of people, hiring managers or freelancers, haven't actually yet used a platform. So it's a huge opportunity. So I think for ourselves, this is where we started, right? So this is the problem that we actually started to solve. So I said 12 years with the Leadership Group, largest privately owned staffing company in the world. I have trained hundreds, maybe thousands of people how to qualify a contract rec, right? A contract gig. There's an art to it. It's really difficult to do. If you've had a bad day, you've been out the night before, you've been arguing with your girlfriend, and you've got a client in that morning, you might not qualify. Also, what happens traditionally is that a manager will do a call with a lot of agencies, and there'll be 5, maybe 10 agencies, sometimes 20 agencies on that call, especially if it's via an MSP. Qualifying a rec properly on those sort of situations is really, really difficult. And there's a lot of, that the manager could be in a bad mood, the person qualifying it could be a bad mood. But if you think about it, the qualifying that need is where it all begins, right? Because if you then qualify that badly, and we call them spam gigs, right? I need a developer. There's a platform, I won't name them, but they're pretty big. On their platform 2 weeks ago was a gig that said, I need a wife, right? Nobody that was able to go live in the platform. They're a big company, they've got up in their title. That should never, gigs like that are going everywhere, right? So we were like, how do we help improve take some of that pressure away from recruiters. I believe that a lot of recruiters ain't going to be made redundant, right? With the use of AI, they should be able to do what they do better. They should be selling. They should be handling issues. They should be upselling. There's lots of things that can do really well. Managing a relationship. I see recruiters becoming customer success managers, right? That's really where I see the role going, which is a really important role, right? But if you think about it, I used to see people going out every day qualifying. I need a project, software developer, .NET developer, Java developer, UX designer. If you got 100 people to qualify 100 ones, you would have 100 different needs, right? And then you would match different people to it, and you'd be wasting people's time, and you might get the match you need. But so we decided, could we automate that process and make sure it was a process where, where we qualify all the key information, but we also use, initially we used some conversational AI. That's where it started, and then it's really moved on to using generative AI. We've jumped on we're in the Azure house, so we jumped on ChatGPT because it's better than what we had, quite frankly. But we had used conversational AI at first, and that would create a defined piece of work every time. Our work is deliverable based milestone work. So ours is really an SOW. That's what we do. We're an SOW shop, if you think about it. So we use the technology to help define a good quality piece of work every single time. And then there's certain checks and balances that means if that is not qualified correctly, it won't make it to the platform, which then means that we might not have the volume of gigs as some of the big companies, but you do know that when you come to our platform, it's a well-qualified, well-scoped out piece of work. And it's something that we have, we continually work on day in, day out to do that. And because I think that's the start of the process, right? I won't swear on a webinar, but if you put garbage in, you get garbage out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that for any person managing technology platforms such as ours, the qualification of that need is step number one, the most important one. Agreed. Dave, on your side, the way I understood it, right? You're working on job descriptions and you're helping to make them better, right?
Yeah. And I'll go through. Rich, I'm a little disappointed you're not going to swear on the webinar. I have to be honest with you, but
still early, Dave. Still early.
So yeah, I think how we look at it is we think AI can add a lot to the recruiters and to the people, the talent placing the jobs. Is like, how do you actually improve communication? Where we've seen the biggest breakdown is everyone, they think that they're nailing the job description. I can give you exactly what we need. But like once you start talking to them and they see some people, they're like, oh, I really meant this technology or adding in this data. And with AI now, you can start looking at it and say, hey, when people ask for Kubernetes and Docker, they really want to know what flavor of Kubernetes. Is it Google? Is it EKS from Amazon? Is it Azure Container Services? So when you start looking at those job descriptions, and you can bounce them now with AI, like with GPT, it runs against all the ONET job profiles. You can very quickly find that missing information, that missing context to be able to decorate those job descriptions and get a more accurate, to Rich's point, the garbage in, garbage out. The better you can get the job description, the better match. And then even when you look at the talent side from a developer standpoint, sometimes they're not even the best they take too much things for granted of what they know, what they've done, what they've seen. And, they don't necessarily put their latent skills in there. So you might find hidden skills where if someone's done A, B, and C, they've actually done D, E, and F as well, but that doesn't surface it. So when you start using the AI pieces, they can say, hey, did you actually mean to add these skills? Or it looks like because you completed these tasks and done this job position, you may have also become good at these things. Would you like to add them to your talent profile? So now once you start getting that complete data out there, it makes that matching process 1,000 times easier.
Absolutely. And insisting on garbage in, garbage out, no? I want to add another angle, which is when the business talks to HR or recruiting teams, right? One of the key challenges is to understand what is required to find the right person, right? And we've all done JDs, we've all done job descriptions and scope of works, but sometimes things get lost in translation when it reaches HR or recruiter agencies, right? So in our case, in Outvise, the challenge we have is that we do not work with coders, developers, or we don't work with data scientists. We work with a broad range of business transformation roles. It could be a management consultant for a digital transformation project. It could be an architect. It could be a customer experience expert, right? So you mentioned the word context, and for us, starting with the right context and enriching that context is what we are all about. So we've defined a number, in our case, the way we've approached it, we've defined a number of key roles that we believe are quite general. Those roles are associated with some skills, some certifications, some type of tasks that they typically do. And through the thousands of requests that we've been receiving in the years, and the thousands of experts that we have in our database, we are able to help the person uploading the scope of work to complete those details by suggesting skill certifications, tasks. So in a similar way, we enrich that scope of work to end up with a firm description, right? And all that is all about for us is how we're using technology and data to add more skills, more certifications, more types of tasks. And the key thing for us is to find the discriminating factor. So for example, you might need a Six Sigma expert to optimize processes. That's a general statement, although it's not that general, right? But it's not the same if you want to do this and manage RPA for a telco than maybe for a pharma, and you need to have a UI path expertise, right? So those are discriminating factors that we are trying to find out through that conversation tree with our requestors, with the clients. Okay, cool. So different approaches, right? We have job description enrichment. We have a focus on scope of works and deliverables around data science, which is Geeked.AI. But then we have a broad range of roles that require to land that context into something that's detailed enough and can discriminate enough one role from the other. So that leads to the second question, right? So once we have this, what are we doing to match and find the right candidate in a proper way? So I'm going to hand it on to you, Dave, to start. How do we match? What tools can we use to match properly these candidates?
Yeah, so what we try to do is, one thing with talent in general is, even as myself, no one likes to be interviewed like 1,000 times. So what we try to do is look at like what the person's done in the past. So we pull in data from like, what are they doing on GitHub, and give certain weights so we can start assessing their skills based on what they've already done in real world situations, as well as we work with some, kind of your standard algorithmic type testing platforms. We pull in the data, how they're doing, what their skill ratings are, add that to their profile as well. They can also self-attest to their skills and add that from work history. And then we also have the ability to do interviews with the people as well, where we then will rate and rank them and give them feedback on those ratings. So now we have a good sense of skills, ratings, capabilities, qualities for those people. And then we have the ability, as we've said before, where we pull in that enriched job description. And then we may even talk about, hey, how well is this client? What are they looking for? Kind of the soft skills, other aspects of how it fits the role, total experience, things of that nature. And then we use an AI algorithm to do the matching of that today. And then the other piece of that is we're starting to pull back where we get a sense of people that are, hey, these 3 people worked really well, and the success rate, they've been successful. We can start capturing that data to do kind of like by like analysis, that if this job description was here, people really like this one. So it's more a human in the loop type approach to finding what the proper matches will be.
Rich, I'll take the next one because Dave mentioned the human loop, and we also have a human loop. And I think you guys, Rich, have more automatism in your platform in that sense, if I'm not mistaken. So we also use the human loop for the matching. So of course, we've developed an algorithm that is able to understand a request, identify the discriminating factors, and run it through our database to find the right people that meet the general need, but above all, the discriminating factors, right? And this is a process that, as we add new skills to the platform, new things come up. Not 2 years ago, ChatGPT didn't exist, right? So new skills come up. These discriminating factors are incorporated into our database. So the system knows how to do this, right? And we need to train the system to do this better and better based on those general roles. But the human factor here for us is also very relevant. I agree. In our garbage in, garbage out, but garbage in is also the profiles, right? You need to have good quality profiles. So we make sure that we gather references, certifications, we provide client feedback, and that all weights into the reliability of the profile. When we're not sure about a key role, we have some experts in our network that run interviews, what we call scouts, and they do a qualification that feeds into the profile and into the weighting algorithm. So we match the hard skills in the algorithm with human-based feedback to improve that algorithm. So yeah, I totally buy the human touch for now. I think it's for us, it's a must. Rich, what's your take there?
Yeah, it's pretty similar to what Dave described, to be honest, right? So, you're a big believer in making sure, beyond a CV, really ball too much with CVs, right? We try and get a hub, the portfolio, try and build up, from different references, different, tapping into different ratings they've got on other platforms as well. Some you can do easily, some you can't. But trying to create a holistic, view of the talent, and then we've got various skill matching algorithms to then make sure that to then give the customer a choice, and that when that choice comes up, they get a notification. We've still got the human element though, right? So I don't think the human element ever leaves it totally. I don't ever see us being a fully autonomous platform. Our customer success managers mainly working in enterprise. When they start working in enterprise, the good old recruiter mindset comes in as well, right? If you've just had somebody working a project for XYZ Bank and they've done a great job, and that customer then qualifies the SOW saying, this is what I need, you never want to curtail that customer success manager, say, actually, Victoria has just worked with us an XYZ customer doing exactly this. That should be the top of your list. Like, the algorithm will probably pick that up, but how much more powerful is it coming from a customer success manager who's working in your industry, right? So I think there's still that element of that human loop, right? But I think it's but that doesn't scale very well, right? And I think that's the issue with platforms. Obviously, Dave knows that better than any with Topcoder, right? About how you scale it, and you scale it by obviously automating a good chunk of the process, so you don't need thousands and thousands and thousands of people doing the recruiting. So yeah, I still think there's a place for both. But yeah, if we can get some of the heavy lifting, and also like we've got people hiring, like our best day for gigs is a Saturday afternoon. Weird, right? So my team don't want to work Saturday afternoon, so they can get a match. So come Monday morning, they've got a match, and they're about to, the hire sometimes is made, or the customer success manager can just help get it over the line, right? So I think there's some interesting elements about that always on approach.
Okay, so definitely there's a common theme for all of us three, right? We use the technology to bring out that data in the relevant way for the opportunity, the structured data, the skills, the hard skills and the soft skills, but then the human feedback is in front. Right? We use that human feedback. It's in the platform. We just need to show it, and it needs to be explained to the end client. Good. So the next point is, okay, so how do we get all these experts and we onboard them in an automatic or scalable way? What are the key things we're doing, and what are the challenges we're facing? Rich, would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, I think it's obviously it's a difficult. For any two-sided marketplace, obviously supply and demand is the name of the game, right? The minute your supply is good, your demand's struggling. The minute your demand's good, your supply is struggling, right? I think that's I've never seen it any other way. Maybe it is, but I've not seen it yet. So I think when it comes to supply, I still think that one of the best ways to build sustainable supply is good people know good people, right? So good old-fashioned referrals, right? You obviously can automate a lot of that, but I still think referrals and people who work with each other. Also, one of the other things that we have tapped into is tapping into upcoming talent pools. So, we're based in the UK. The UK is some really interesting places. You've got the Data Lab, you've got Code Clan in Scotland, you've got Caps Lock. These are places who are reskilling and retraining people as UX designers, CISOs, software developers. We tap into a lot to that talent and actually try and educate them how around freelancing and freelance platforms can actually help them build a portfolio instead of them, because they're struggling to pick up jobs, right? Reskillers and upskillers, unless it's been sponsored by that company, struggle. So we've tried to tap into different talent pools, right? Not just the traditional freelancer. One of the things that worked well for us was tapping in. If you follow us on social media, you hear us talk a lot about side hustlers. So we actually target people who are in permanent jobs, doing a full-time job, obviously we're back in redundancy season, right? Layoff season. So we actually have targeted a lot of people who are in perm jobs and they want a side hustle. They want to do, they can do short, sharp pieces of work. They can't take on a 6-month contract, right? No chance. But could they take on a milestone for $5,000 and earn some extra money, in their evenings and weekends, if that suits them? Obviously, if it doesn't suit them, don't do it. But a lot of people it does. So I think there's just different talent pools we can tap into. I think the days of just tapping into out and out contractors, I think that's changing. So that's something that we've tried to embrace.
Yep. Yeah. All the fractional work, multi-project at the same time, working off hours. If you have a full-time job, agreed. Dave, how are you guys doing with your onboarding of experts?
Yeah, I think for onboarding is not a spot where we're adding a ton of AI. Where I think we're probably doing some unique things is, with partners around background checks, things of that nature, where they're more based on verified credentials. So the idea there is that once you get kind of your background check, the talent can own it. It can go into the matching AI. So a lot of what we do in the onboarding kind of falls into the matching AI. We spend probably more of our time on the concurrent work, like once someone gets placed, which I think is our next topic.
Yes, it will be. On our case, we tap multiple sources. Definitely referrals is a key source for us. We're working together with our community of experts to qualify other experts, which I think is something that, because we have so many different types of roles, is very useful for us. In our process, people register, upload the CV. The CV gets parsed. So it means that we extract the content of our CV and we try to bring it back into the database. I must say one of the challenges is the parsing tools we've encountered are not great. So we need to do a lot of work to suggest skills, requests for references, reference projects. And once these people qualify, we do go to former employers to check how great these people are. And it's all a process to onboard the people eventually, right, into the network. So in that sense, it's pretty automatic, but we do have manual work again to push for references and get those references from former clients. For example, or if we need to run a technical interview, the platform enables that, but it still needs to be run, right? I mean, you could do a coding test for a coder, but a management consulting gig, there's no test for that, right? So it's more a reference and an interview possibly. So yeah, this is one of our themes, but definitely parsing is an element that we are missing, and what kind of skills and tags and profiles relate to a CV. So the interpretation of a CV from a machine, it's still not perfect. It's still not giving all the results that they should. So we need to put our own IP in there to improve it. Okay, so the last question in our theme of 4 questions, and I think we might be getting way into the webinar now, running out of time, is how do we make sure that we use our platform and technology to manage the clients properly, and maybe even to achieve predictive hiring. And on predictive hiring, Rich they have a specific view on that, and then I'll give you on to Dave.
Yeah, I do. I've got an old school, right? So this is something we're doing a lot of work on. I wouldn't say we've perfected it by any stretch of the imagination, right? Because I said we spent the majority of our time so far on the qualification of those milestones and the matching, right? But one of the things that we've been spending a lot of time on is, if you look at, you know, traditional contract recruiters, right, and I'll always look at it from a contract recruiter mindset. One of the things that I thought was old school, but it's still happening, is the sending a CV on spec, right? So you've got a great candidate, or you've got somebody finishing up for you. Usually it's somebody who's finishing up, and then you've got your manager been like, "What are you doing to redeploy this person? We need to keep, you know." You've got that CV then gets sent out to lots of hiring managers, and it still happens. I get about 10 a day still to this point. And you're just getting CVs, right? You get CVs spent on spec, especially with redundancies going on just now. You're just getting CVs sent on spec. It's called a hit and hope. Now, you're traditionally, in my world, about 40% of billings came from that approach, right? It's probably a bit less now, but it used to be as much as 40%, right? There was a company called, I think it's still going, Progressive. That was their only business model. They would just send out CVs, and then people would bite on them. So one of the things that we're looking at with predictive hiring, but really it's machine learning with the data we're capturing, is what's the next hire going to be, right, in their project? Because we're always working in projects. So what's the next hire probably going to be? What are the skills and backgrounds that has tended to be successful? So if they've hired, you know, 5 software developers with XYZ skills that have came from investment banking and maybe have then worked in, you know, like a Bain or an Accenture or something, does that, right? There's a success profile there. So one of the things we're working on is, can we make sure that those hiring managers are getting a ping or a notification of great resources that's coming available without the hit and hope approach, right? It's never going to be perfect. But if we look at, you know, if you stick generative AI in, if you check and bring in Jasper or Bard or ChatGPT and ask it, "I'm hiring a business analyst, what's my next hire going to be?" It's going to tell you, right? And it's going to be pretty predictive. So could we then use that technology, combined with what we've already got, to actually make sure that those managers are then, you know, those project managers, program managers, they're actually getting, you know, good, relevant people at the right time, right? And it's something that we're, you know, it's a bit off, right? It's not, I don't think it's a silver bullet, but, you know, just to reduce that whole friction around just getting 100 CVs and dumping CVs, not great for the candidate either, because they always get most of the time they don't know what's happening. So they say, "Oh, you've got an interview tomorrow with XYZ," and you're like, "What?" So, you know, it's not even AI, using just a good automated platform, they could get a ping saying, "Hey, look, you have been notified to, you know, the software engineering manager at JP Morgan. Are you happy for this to happen?" Boom. You know, there's clever things that we could do to make sure that people are proactively getting redeployed into other projects without it being a manual process. So it's something that I said we're doing a lot of work. It's not priority number one for us, but it's definitely something that we've got what we call the Gig Lab, and it's just a place where we, you know, I usually have crazy ideas, and then the clever guys go away and they work on it for a bit, and they come back and tell me if it's feasible. And that's something that we're definitely working on.
I think that's fascinating. I mean, you know, it's such a thing as hiring, which is not impulse at all, right? I mean, it's definitely what you need next, and it's an important decision. I think it's very bold that you offer this service. Fascinating to see how this works out.
It's not live yet, I would say. As I said, it's something that we are. It's something that we're passionate about, we're playing with. We're not going live with it yet. It's still in UAT. It's still something we're looking at. And you know, the more, you know, we're less than 20 months old as a company, right? So we need more data. But it's definitely something we see to be the one of the next steps in the back end of the process, right? About redeployment, because redeployment in traditional contract world is a big issue for every contract agency out there. It's the same for the talent platform, right? So, you know, it's something that we're definitely thinking a lot about, doing work on. But yeah, as I said, we haven't gone live on it yet because there's a lot to think about. Ethics, there's a lot of being able to be transparent. So there's a lot need to go into it. So we'll probably need a few more venture dollars before we do that. But it's definitely something we're working on.
Good, Rich. Dave, is your take also on predicting the next hire, or are you working in other ways to engage with your clients?
We do a little bit of that. Probably haven't thought through as much as Rich and team have. But what we try to do is, one of the things we try to look at is just not be a staffing platform where once you make that match, we kind of shake hands and disappear, is to be engaged on both sides of the platform. So we actually acquired a company we announced earlier this month with Coda-like, which had been around for roughly 15 years, but we've known them for a while. And what we do is when a developer is involved or a staff to a client, we give this ability for them, basically think of it as like the Apple Health Watch for a developer. So it's looking at how many interruptions you have, how often you're coding, how, what you're working on. It can, if you want to sign up teammates, it can look at how are you guys all coding together? How are you all editing or using the debugger in certain functions? So it might recommend, hey, you should add breakpoints here, or you can add a better documentation. And we've had some great success there. So we look at it really, it's the talent's data. So the talent owns it. So we're not sharing any of it with the client without their permission. But we've had spots where maybe there's been a slight, hey, this isn't really working out between us and the developer. We've been able to go back to the developer and say, hey, can we work with you, share the data? And it's actually turned what could be a very painful, long conversation of this guy's not working out to a 25-minute conversation of look at all he's done. He's increased your test cases. He's done these things, and turn that around to help the developer better show their skill set, and also helps grow their skill set by helping with some of those recommendations. We also offer a mentoring service. So we try to pair up our junior developers with more senior developers so they can grow their career. And with the addition of that data, that helps their mentor be able to better prepare them and bring up their skills. So it's been very successful from a gig worker standpoint of being able to grow their career, with typically, because they're an independent contractor, they don't have that capability to be able to up-level themselves and be able to continue that contract or go on to their next contract.
Well, the focus on influencing the quality of the delivery through coaching, mentoring, supporting the experts, the coders in your case, I think it's extremely valuable. In the end, one of the questions that clients always ask talent platforms is about the quality, right? And we are focused on the quality of the people, not necessarily, we don't know about the delivery, right? It's not our job to know about the delivery, but the more we can support the people in delivering properly, all the better. In our case, we are, like all of us know, we are B2B, typically quite high value projects, right? Some of them are strategic. So certain parts of the client engagement process are automated, but other parts rely on some sort of client management, client onboarding. So any upselling, cross-selling would come through the client management, persons. We do use the platform to access CVs, profiles, reviews. There's a lot of information there, and you can interact to arrange interviews and provide feedback that we use. But then there's also a negotiation phase that we're not doing through platform. We're doing that people-based, right? And some part of the contract setup, we have digital signature in our side, but not so much on the client side, because on the client side, sometimes they have their own frame agreements. You cannot automate certain things, right? But I would say 30–40% of the process is going nicely automatic, and the rest is technology assisted for us. In terms of what we're doing with the experts, we are building up communities based on topics. I always think, no, we have a cloud of people, thousands of people that are great at what they do. And that talent, if it's properly coordinated and leveraged, there's a lot of value in that, right? So if we're able to build these islands of topics or expertise and allow experts to help each other, this is we're working on. We have a forum area in our platform, and we have a client marketing person that deals with the community. So that's what we are doing in terms of quality, managing experts, and the clients. Okay, cool. So we have 3 different cases here. We have a platform focused on developers. We have a platform, Gigged.Ai, that's focused, correct me if I'm wrong, but around data science and data architects and data scientists and data engineers, right? And one that is more general around business technology transformation. I think it might be a good moment now to move to the Q&A. I'm not sure how much we have. Okay, we have a few questions here. Let's see. Okay, Zain Haidar, can you provide some examples of how AI has improved client management? Okay, I think we've highlighted the predictive hiring or the ideas that we're going to put in place for predictive hiring. Definitely scoping work and projects, I believe, is a key improvement in terms of managing the client. Sometimes the client needs assistance in scoping what they need, and definitely narrowing down on the right experts, so that our core business is improving client management without a doubt. I don't know if Rich or Dave want to add anything in addition to AI improving client management itself that we have not said.
I think we touched on like the main points, right? I think the scope and the matching. I think there's obviously an argument for AI assistance, but I'm also, this is an area where I kind of think caution is needed, right? So there still needs to be a human there can deal with. So if I've learned anything from placing thousands of contractors, when you have a human hiring manager and a human person, things ain't going to go wrong, right? And I think there's going to be disputes. Most disputes and most things can be dealt with a little bit of calmness and a little bit of common sense. I don't think I would want an AI assistant dealing with a dispute between a hiring manager and a developer, right? I would always want to have someone dedicated to that account that can pick up things as and when they needed. So I think this is where, and hopefully a lot of the AI technology we've talked about can give that person more time to be doing that. And I think that's how you build a great relationship with a client. When things go wrong, when things don't go great, or you're with a freelancer, when they know you're backing them through a hard situation, I think that's the point, which is key. So I'm very nervous and cynical about really outsourcing too much of the client management, but even the freelancer management as well, right? Outsourcing too much of that. There still needs to be, I've still got community managers, I've got customer success managers who are still engaging with people regularly. And I still think that's really important.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree with Rich. I mean, we try to have human customer success managers. I think where AI helps a lot in that space is if it can look at your deliverables, maybe your timesheet and other things. Like I know at least myself, I'm guilty of looking back like, what did I do today? How did I do it? Like if you could have like summarized journaling, like, hey, I completed these things. I worked on these codes. I completed these tickets, and it can look at that and summarize based on what you've done and what tools it has access to. It just makes that much easier for the in our case, the staff developer to say, I've completed these things, I've done this work, and then they can write their own spin on it, edit it, throw it all away, whatever they need to do. If they need to give like a daily stand-up report or a report to a client at the end of the day, that's all just whatever you can do to make life easier for the talent or the customer. I think, like to Rich's point, to facilitate that human to human interaction and take away the drudgery is really important. Good.
Okay, we have another question. This is a tricky one. How can the AI identify the skills if the meaning of the job titles might be different from industry to industry, right? I mean, certain things in pharma are not the same as certain things in oil and gas, right? Or even companies, right? Companies might have different nuances on what they think a job description is, right? Any thoughts on that? I mean, I'm happy to step forward on this one. This is a tricky one, and this is the concept of the context. We need to be able to narrow down the context of what you need into enough detail that ends up discriminating what is exactly what you need based on your industry or your job, the way you understand it, right? So if we're able to narrow down a context, if I'm talking a project manager, it's not the same as a developer and it's not the same as a management consultant, right? But that's a very broad context. Now, if from that broad context, we are able to interact, and ChatGPT has lots of examples on how to narrow down certain questions, and each of our platforms has a lot of IP accumulated to narrow down the next questions, we are able to drill down from a broad context to a more specific that can be industry relevant. In our case, we focus on certain industries, not all of the industries, So as we build volume of data around other industries, that will be included. But I think that's the strategy that we follow, at least in Outvise. Dave, I don't know if this is something you agree.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think like your platform, having that human in the loop helps there too. Is that, I guess, another way to say is that onboarding of being able to have that context of knowing, I think that's one of the advantages of having a platform versus being like a job board, right? A job board, you're going to throw something up there. It's kind of is what it is. With a platform, part of the goal of the platform is to ingest that, add context, decorate it with additional data, features, even having that human in the loop that can come in and even provide more clarity where it's less time for the person posting the job. And that just provides better matches at the end of the day. So I think it's, again, a combination of that AI and human in the loop scenario.
Yes. And each of the platforms has its own IP, its own experience, its own interpretation of the data, right? So the better we are at what we do, the more we can help the clients narrow down that scope. Okay, there's a comment around Neon. There's a mention that Neon has built up a platform that is extremely user-friendly. A few clicks, one CV upload, and off it goes. Okay, human intuition be more valuable than AI-based recommendations. Well, I think we need to combine both, but human intuition is unique. Okay, I used to heavily rely on the one recruitment portal was using AI algorithms for resume matching, but 50–60% of their matching profiles were not accurate at matching. How to overcome this issue? What could be the wrong in their algorithms? Okay, yeah. So some platforms are not getting the matching right. I don't know what Dave, you want to mention, or Rich?
Yeah, I mean, I guess just a quick reaction there is I think resume passing has been around for 20 years. You can look at some vendors that have been able to pass and look at the skills and pull data out and do straight matching. Yeah. That's been around for 20 plus years. And I completely agree with you. And I think it's back to that same point we keep talking about context and like, where do you get additional data? So is it not just the straight resume or the straight job description? It's the context around it, adding additional data, finding out more of like latent skills or the hidden questions and using AI and questions to pull that out, and then interacting with, capturing more and more data so that everything's just not a point in time question of what that is, but it's really based on, hey, we've seen this job 100 times, 80% of the time, this question's been asked. Let's ask it immediately when the job's been posted. So it's not 2 days later when you've looked at 4 or 5 resumes and you're like, oh, you know what I really meant? As I really meant I needed X, Y, and Z, then that leaves that bad flavor in everyone's mouth.
Rich, I mean, you had some good examples there, no? Yeah, I agree with David. I think it was using Daxtra 20 years ago, right, to the CV pass, and it's not new. And yeah, it's and I think it's about what data you use, and how are you using job classification systems? How are you classifying those skill sets? Those job titles, how are you updating that regularly? Because technology is obviously moving on so much, so quickly, and jobs are changing, so much at the moment. Obviously, if you look at a copywriter, their job's probably never the same again, right? So so I think it's just keeping up to date with that and investing the time and the money that you need to on making sure those algorithms can be as effective as they possibly can, but it's an ongoing thing, right? So I think the fact that if something's not working, you need to continue to adapt it, right?
Yeah, I would want to add 2 things. Look, the gap between what you need and what you get has been not just a tech gap. I mean, I think with all respect, but in the HR departments, there has been this gap, right? What the business needs and the CVs that they get is not exactly what the business owner had in mind, right? So first, there's a challenge in the interpretation of those CVs. Not if you're really good, knowledgeable about those type of roles, then you'll be much better at matching, right? So this links for me to the point of platform specialization, right? In our case, we focus on relevance, right? When we have an opportunity, we submit very few CVs. And then we might get feedback and adapt the algorithms to fine tune what we submit, right? But typically 2-3 CVs for a start, right? And that's what we do. And there are roles that we don't take, and the industries that we don't do, right? So that specialization allows us to build the data knowledge and the technology to fine tune. Now we've all enlisted in competitor portals. Some of them are very generalist. And I'm an ex-management consultant, and I can register in a general portal, and I receive job opportunities that have nothing to do with what I know how to do, right? So if you're generalist, sometimes it doesn't quite work out, in my view. So I think it's good that people have a look at what type of platforms they are working with for certain types of needs or roles, right? Okay, how do you envision leveraging AI to assist your talent, freelancers and contractors in upskilling and advancing their careers, ultimately leading to more lucrative or fulfilling roles? Whoa, nice.
I can take a stab at that. I mean, I think we're doing some of that now from a technical standpoint, and technical skills. But I think even like, not to put words, but like imagine what Rich is talking about, that next job, is you can, as we start seeing more and more jobs, or, maybe as Outvise is seeing these specific jobs, we know like, here are the skills, here's the most follow-on work, here are the skills that you need for this follow-on work. So we'll be able to generate career paths, skill trees, where, hey, if you have these skills, the next spots are these things. We do at Torc, we try to do a community model for our talent base. We think of it as basically a hub and spoke, where a person is here and they work out to become an expert in one technology, but maybe they're only novice here. So how do we get them to move down the novice and move out to the expert in the next spot as well? And by tracking the skills, the related skills, the number of jobs and the trajectory of those job posts, we're able to see like, here are the skills, here's where the next skills are, but here are the base of those skills in the skills tree to help recommend people. This is where you want to go next, or what the next skills you need to pick up with, and potentially hook you up with a mentor or something along those lines. But I don't know if Rich or Eusebi, if you want to pile on that.
Yeah, I think a very simple one I see, and I'm starting to see it more. And I said we've looked at it, is how you can use some of the AI tools out there, whether it's Copy AI or whether it's ChatGPT or whatever, but to use those tools to help. Because most freelancers, especially tech freelancers, are brilliant at their given job, right? They're great data scientists, they're great developers. They're not salespeople, right? And some are great salespeople, but most aren't, right? And because it's not their skill set, nor should it be their skill set. I'm a sales guy by heart. You don't want me coding for you, right? So I think there's the tools you can use to help your proposal, right? Instead of just saying, hey, I can do your job for this, right? Hey, you could take their experience, stick it into Copy AI or something, and turn that into a really, you're not cheating anything, but it takes your all experience and it's better at explaining what you do to the client. And that might then end up, you get that more lucrative role, or you get a better fill rate, because you can use those tools to describe what you do better. Like I put everything I write now through Copy AI or ChatGPT, everything I write, every email, every bit of I put it through because I want to try it. And a lot of the time it comes back in something better than I would have said it, right? So I think freelancers can get a lot of benefit out of using the generative AI tools out there to help them when it comes to that proposal stage, right? You can put all your GitHub stuff in there and it'll create a 3 paragraphs for you about how you sell yourself.
Yeah, and I think platforms such as ours honestly can multiply the potential of an expert. To give you a few examples, we have experts in our database that are great at customer experience, for example, and they're interacting with their clients, but their client has other needs or additional needs that they don't know about. They can pull from the platform expertise on demand that helps them serve their clients. That's one example. Another example, we put experts in front, and we have a team promoting experts out there, use cases, articles. What have they done, right? We have tons of information. We can share pricing ranges, pricing levels. Does this make sense? We can feedback this to the experts, right? So in addition to what Dave said, which is what's your next evolution, right? In where you want to go, and what should you be learning, and how can I help you? I think there's a lot a lot out there that the pulling in a lot of people in a collaborative way, plus the data managed in the right way, can be put in the hands of experts to enhance them, to make them better at what they do, and move along. Definitely. Okay, I have message saying time to finish. I don't even know, we don't even have time for wrap up, but I think we're going to distribute the video to whoever wants to have it. Before you guys leave, there's going to be a little survey, 3 questions. Please answer it. It's helpful. And yeah, Rich, Dave, anything you want to add?
No, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. It's always fun connecting with like-minded individuals. Anyone else who wants to chat, on LinkedIn or Twitter, happy to connect with anyone. But really appreciate the time, Eusebi and Rich. Enjoyed our conversation.
Thanks.
Yeah, same. Thanks for the time. Really good to talk to you both. On LinkedIn if you want to connect, or Gigged.AI if you want to look at the platform. And really good talking.
Great. Have a look at the platforms, developers, data science, business transformation in general. Have a look what these type of platforms can offer. If you have any questions, let us know. We'll connect you with everyone.